So I think we could start. So I'm very glad that we made it to this meeting. It was actually a coffee meeting with Chinese when we were just sharing the ideas, and I think it was not the first time when we came to a very similar idea. And yeah, I can introduce myself shortly. I've been working with Chinese for 5 years and with Asfar for 5 years, and that's really an amazing experience that we had. And I represent the organization Creative Development Center. We are established in Georgia, and Teona is also my colleague. We are doing civic education programs. We are doing a lot of programs for the business education. And together with Teona and my other colleagues, we have developed also our startup, which is the Goalcatcher. And now it's also a mentor hub, so it's more like a company delivering the educational programs connected with the mentoring. And Chinese was one of our first international partners who got very interested in what we're doing and supported the idea. And I'm happy to hear that we are also using it. So idea is that since 2010, actually, so 10 years ago, I got first time across with the coaching and the grow model and the tools that are really helpful for planning your life in a, I would say, more organized way. And what we have developed is putting these tools together, and we have created the notebook, the textbook that you can use for planning your life in the better way. I would like to ask you if you actually see the screen, so you can just type yes if you see the screen. So, I can start. Okay, cool. Thank you very much. And if you have the question, you can just unmute and ask, or you can also write in the chat. I will try to also keep the chat on, so I will see if you have some questions. So this notebook that we developed is also actually based on the coaching techniques. And later I can also send it to you, the version that you can use online. And we actually united the coaching techniques that we think are, I would say, one of the most effective. And let me introduce to you a few of them. And then I will also introduce you to the structure of the whole thing. So you can go to this website that I'm copying in the chat. It's the Wheel of Life Online. And I can tell you a bit about this tool that is actually also one of my favorite tools. And here it is, the Wheel of Life. So the Wheel of Life is also one of the coaching tools that is usually the first thing that we introduce in our mentoring programs and to the people that we are working with. And this mentoring we are using in all of our projects. We use it in our organization. We use it on different levels, on the individual, on the organizational level. And the Wheel of Life is something that will probably be very useful for you, especially in these times, because it's about finding the balance in your life. So how it works, you can also try it now to work it out, but you can also just get to know about it and then use it afterwards. So it's not necessarily that you follow the flow now and do the exercise, but you can also do it later. So the Wheel of Life is the coaching technique which gives you this opportunity to pick different spheres of your life. So what happens very often is that we are so much involved in different things, and I mentioned before that especially now when there are so many things happening online and there are so many opportunities, people find it very difficult to pick something that they prefer, and they are somehow also lost in this chaos. But similar thing happened when we're actually living our everyday life, and when we are somehow part of the routine and we don't ask ourselves, like, what is something that is important for us? Like, what is the priority that we should take, and how we can balance our life? So if you open the website that I copied to you, you will see that there are like eight topics of the life. And these topics can be whatever is important for you. It can be your career, it can be your personal life, it can be anything that you think is important, like friends, health, lifestyle, education, travel, whatever. And then you put you put them on the wheel, and you choose these 8 lines. And then what you do is you try to evaluate where you are in the sphere in your life, according to your perception. So, for example, if you choose here like career, family, personal life, fun, hobby, or something else, you then think of if you would like to be on the number 10, so in the best situation, how your life should be in this direction. For example, if we say, I don't know, career. So if you want to evaluate your career on the 10, how it should look like. And then what you do is you mark where you are at the moment. So is it 1, 2, 5, 9, or 10? What you will see afterwards, and why I like this website very much, is it gives you this dynamic view of the wheel of life. You give it like your evaluations, and what you see is that some things that are important to you are on a low level, and some things that are important to you are on a high level. The idea of the wheel of life is not actually, there's a question. I will answer this question. So the idea of the wheel of life is not that you actually are on the 10 in everything, but the idea is that you have a balance in your life. So it's very important that you see the different parts of your life, where they are at the moment, and what you should do. So the next step is actually what you should do to make it more balanced, to somehow find the balance in different spheres. So if you have like most of the 6 things at 6, and some things are, I don't know, at 3 or 2, then these are the spheres where you should intervene and somehow improve. There's a question from Boyana. How did you get the final result? Can you maybe just unmute and explain this question, because I didn't get it.
Well, at the beginning you mentioned this document is a result of working on few techniques, and I'm interested in which one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we gathered techniques that are actually coaching techniques. And we gathered the ones that are really like the basis of the coaching and are the most important ones. So the wheel of life is one of them, because when we start coaching, which is, doesn't matter if it's life coaching or the professional coaching, the idea is that you want to develop, but you cannot develop, or you cannot set the right goals in your life if you don't see what are the priorities in your life, if you don't see what is unbalanced in your life and where you actually need the balance and improvement. So the logic is actually built on this, and the logic is that first you start with the looking back. So when you start using this workbook, it doesn't matter when you started. It's not necessarily like January 1st or New Year. You can start it tomorrow, but you can evaluate what has happened before, because this evaluation does not happen in our life very often, because as I said, like we're so much involved in the routine and so much busy with different things that we don't have time or the consciousness to actually ask these questions to ourselves. So this planner gives you a chance to actually give yourself time, I don't know, 15 minutes a day, or like an hour a week, and sit down and actually answer these questions of what did you like about things that you have done previously, then come to the state where you try to find like the imbalances in your life and think of where you need to find the balance. And this is why we introduced the wheel of life. And afterwards, I would recommend, I mean, in this notebook, the wheel of life is only once, but we always recommend to draw it yourself like few times. You can say, okay, once a month I draw my wheel of life, and then you can also compare them. And you can see like what are the improvements, or maybe where do you have like not the progress, but the regress. So maybe something went backwards, so you also need to think about it. And the idea is time to time your priorities will also change. And this is mostly about being conscious of what do you want, what do you need, and where you should go. And here then comes another method, it also gives you a chance to evaluate yourself and find, like, think of what are your strengths and the weaknesses. And this is a very nice exercise because very often we're doing things just by like following the flow, and we don't think of what I'm actually good at, what I love doing. Because if we want to find something that really gives us a income, but also the pleasure, is something that we're good at and something that also we love. And these questions, these coaching questions, are something that helps us in this. So if you tomorrow decide, for example, to find a coach, a life coach or the career coach, and you go to them, they will ask you this similar question. So our main goal was to create something that would give everybody, no matter if they have a time or money to go to the coach or not, a tool for the self-coaching. So this is something where you can coach yourself, you can mentor yourself. The most important thing is to make it also part of your routine. So for example, you can start working with it every Monday and then evaluate every Friday. And that's also how it is built. That this is one of the important parts. Like before started to start working on it, you create the goals for each month. So you think of like, what is the goal for every month in the upcoming year? And then we have divided this notebook in 12 months. Each month is divided in 4 weeks. So for each week you get, for each month you get what are the goals for the month, and then comes the week, and then it's for each week, what is the priority? Because very often, again, we are lost in these to-do lists. We have so much to do. We are not sure what to delegate and what to do ourselves. So it's important to first ask ourselves, and how I do it and how we started doing it was like every Monday or even Sunday evening, I fill in this part, like I set the priorities for the week. And then I think of, okay, what are the work tasks, but also what are the personal things that I have to fulfill. And then at the end of each week, you can evaluate yourself. You can evaluate how far you went with your tasks or whatever you have been planning. What was your achievement? Because also what we forget is when we achieve some things and we tick that our to-do list is done, we forget to actually thank ourselves and to be thankful to the work that we have actually put into our week or month. And we also sometimes have this tendency, I mean, human nature has this tendency that um, we think more about the negative things and then rather than the positive things. So at the evaluation of the week, we also put this question: what was the most unforgettable moment for you? Who made you happy? Because it's important to keep this in mind and repeat it, and then you also somehow move to more like positive rather than the negative part. And it's also important to analyze what is stressful, for example, about the past weeks or past months. So you try to avoid being it like toxic people, being it like toxic tasks that you don't like doing, and maybe these are the tasks that you can delegate to somebody else. And for this, we have also this very nice technique. Maybe you have heard about it. It's Eisenhower method. Um, and it gives you this evaluations and measurements for what you have to do. So when you usually we just like write everything what is in our to-do list, but then you can actually evaluate like how urgent and important these things are. So definitely that are things that you have to do tomorrow because there is a deadline, and that it has to be done by yourself because this is very important. And then these tasks you actually put in the first block. And then there are the things that might be urgent, but not that important. And that means these are the things that you don't have to do tomorrow, maybe even this week. So you don't have to stress about it, but plan when and how to do it. And then there are things that are urgent, but not important. So it has to be done tomorrow, but not necessarily by you. It can be your colleague or your family member. So you can actually calmly delegate these things and don't take everything on yourself. And this is also an important culture, which probably my doctor calls it this manager syndrome. I think it's even the term for the doctors. When you try try to solve everything yourself. And this gives you a chance to think, okay, I mean, you don't have to do everything by yourself. You have to somehow balance what is important for you, what is urgent for you, and what is somehow also in the compliance with the priorities that you set in the beginning. For example, when you do the wheel of life, you know that these spheres of life are important. So sometimes we're doing, I don't know, 10 different projects and we're stressed and we're not happy. And what we try to do with this is to somehow prioritize. You don't have to do everything. I mean, we have this syndrome in the nowadays world, a fear of missing out. And somehow what we also give as a message is you should try the pleasure of missing out and understanding that you find time for yourself and you find time for whatever is important for you, and nothing is less. I mean, if you think that your hobby is as important as your career, it's very natural. And this is something that we also try to promote, so people feel more calm, they know what to get rid of, and they know how to delegate somehow. And then, I mean, when I send it, you will see there are these 4 weeks by each month. And at the end of the first week, there is the evaluation of the month. And I also like this coaching method very much. You write 3 things that you want to continue to do. So this is the habit or something that you're doing well and you like doing it and you think it should stay in your life. There are 3 things that you stop doing, something that you want to give up. Seeing some people, too much communication, too much social media, um, and so on. And then there are 3 things that you want to start doing. So the idea is that you have a plan and you have the plan for the evaluating your plan and finding where you feel comfortable, but also where you don't feel comfortable. And then it repeats itself. So it's 12 months and each month has a similar structure. I will now stop sharing and then start sharing the presentation. But before, if you have some questions, you're very welcome to ask before I open the presentation. Okay. Okay, do you see now the presentation? Cool. So another tool that I wanted to present is the GROW model. And the GROW model is really like the basic for the coaching and basic technique on which, if you see any other coaching techniques, everything is actually built on it. And the main idea of the GROW model is setting your goal and growing according to your goal. And again, the basis for this is that we very often forget to ask ourselves what we actually want. Is our goal to be like promoted, or is our goal to take time from the work, or is our goal to, I don't know, set up a startup and be like the self-dependent entrepreneurs? Yeah. So therefore, the GROW model actually gives you this 4 dimensions and gives you like a clear, so when you finish working on it, you have like a very clear plan on what you want to do, how you want to do, and how you can start from tomorrow on. And these 4 dimensions of the GROW model is goals. So defining your short and long-term goals and what do you actually want to achieve. And you can do it on the different things. You can do the GROW model for your personal things. You can do it for your career things. Then comes the reality. So exploring the current situation, understanding where you stand at the moment, and how you can actually use this moment. Then comes the options. So identifying what is around you, what are the resources, human resources, physical resources, anything that you can actually use. And then comes the will, so defining um, defining somehow what would be your next steps. So how you will actually start from the next day, from the next moment, actually achieving your goal. So it's kind of your personal strategy planning. And the first thing, of course, is setting up a goal. And something that we very often, I myself, make a mistake in is that we set a huge goal. So we want to change the world, we want to change the ecological problems, or we want to just like achieve something huge. And it's very important that goals that we set, no matter if it's like personal or professional, are very concrete. And probably you all know the SMART model. So here it's also very relevant that the goals that you set are very specific, they are measurable, they are achievable, relevant to the time, and time bound. So when you start working on the GROW model, you don't say, okay, I just want to achieve something, but you say, I want to achieve this at this time, and you already have the answer how it will be measured. So if you want to start a job, then you say, okay, by September, I want to have a full-time job. Or by September, I want to have a prototype for my startup. Yeah? So in September, you can say, okay, this was my goal, and I can measure if I made it or not. Or I don't know, by September, I want to participate in 2 professional trainings. And in September, you know that you participated or you didn't. And the GROW is also like, for example, if you want to do your personal financial planning, or like personal life planning is also very good. And there comes the set of the questions for each part. And I won't read through all the questions for each part. I will share with you the presentation and later also the Goalcatcher. But yeah, these questions will help you. And it's not necessary that you answer, you sit and just answer your questions, but these questions are very helpful to find the answer for each part. So if we say, what is my goal? Then these questions like, what do you want to achieve? What is important? Where do you want to be next year? What are the topics that you want to work on? And what outcomes you want to see? These are very like helpful questions. So if you had a coach, then the coach would ask you these questions probably. And these questions are also different. And there we have like one whole day training about asking the right questions and listening in a right way. But the questions give you a chance to dream somehow and to imagine in your ideal world how the situations will work. Because if you don't understand what we want to see, it will be very difficult to measure when the result actually is coming. Yeah, and the other questions are also giving you the chance to analyze how feasible it is, how realistic it is to deliver. Because if it's not realistic, then you will spend like, I don't know, 3 months or a year in fighting for the goal that is illusion. So it's usually better to also break down your goals and your ideas of whatever you want to achieve. Yeah, and it's I also love these imaginatory questions very much, where when it gives you we also do sometimes the meditation on how you feel when you have achieved this goal. Like imagine yourself that you are there, and what is the feeling like, where you are, what are you doing, like how do you feel about this. And this is something that you imagine, so you believe that you actually want it, or you imagine and you realize, okay, this is not something that I actually want to do. So you somehow try to connect your thoughts to your dreams to the reality that you're in. The next set of the questions come to the reality check. Um, where are you at the moment? And again, we come to the consciousness to understand where we stand, like what is the ground, because sometimes we think that the goal is too far away from us, but the ground that we stand at actually gives us a chance to achieve it very soon and very simply, because you have the skills, you have the strengths, you have the knowledges that help you a lot, but you are not using it because you thought that it's something illusionary. And when you imagine it, you see that it might be very realistic. But also questions like, what is working for you? What doesn't work for you? Who else is around you, actually? who would support you in achieving this goal, and what are the factors that actually can help you to reach your goal. And then comes the next set of questions, which is about the opportunities. And this part is also very important because also we don't very often evaluate our opportunities in the right way. So understanding what we have at the moment, like what are the options, where you can go, to whom you can speak, what advantages and disadvantages do you have for each option or opportunity, taking into consideration what resources you have, time resources, financial resources, human resources, meaning people who can actually help you, contacts and networks that can actually help you. And also in this part, you're thinking of how things will develop, like how things can develop if you are on the way of achieving your goals. So you can write like 5 scenarios of how things turn up. Nothing happens, nothing develops, everything goes well. And for each of them, you actually like draw a bit of like a timeline of how you come to this result. So you already see what are the possible options to achieve your goal. And then you try to select like what are the main options, what are the options that you like, that are realistic based on the resources you have, based on the reality you are in, where you are, how much time you have, and so on. And then you move to the final step, which is like wrapping up. So you see your goal, you see where you stand towards your goal, so you can measure that from 1 to 10, I'm on my way, and I evaluate my way that I'm on the 0.5. So I have 5 more points to go. I'm on 0.1, so I have a much longer way to go. And then you actually plan the final stage. Like you have the options, you know what works the best for you, and you can say, okay, I don't know, tomorrow I will write my friends that I am searching for the funding for my startup, or I start my crowdfunding campaign, or I write to my friends that I'm searching for the new job in this direction, or I contact my previous colleagues that I'm interested to take the courses in this and this direction. And you already have a plan, like you can already create from tomorrow on what will be your steps, and then you can also use the other tools in the Goalcatcher where you can say, okay, in January, I will do this. In February, I will do this. The names are just names. You can say, okay, in the first month, I will take this and these steps for achievement. In the month 2, I will take the other steps, and so on. And the important thing is, again, to be measurable. So you need to find the question, answer for the question, like what actions you will take, who will help you, but also how you will measure that you are actually successful in your work, like how you will measure that each step is somehow fulfilled and you are moving forward. And here you can use these different tools to say, to list these measurements that, okay, I was at 5, now I'm at 6 because I have fulfilled this and this. So you have to somehow create the plan which will give you a chance to evaluate this plan. You can find people who will support you in this and do it together with them. You can also ask your friends to be, for concrete goals, your mentors, and do a checkup on you for like every month. But the most important thing is how motivated you are. So you can also measure from now how motivated you are to achieve your goal. Because if you are not motivated, of course, that does not make any sense. And then, yeah, you can choose the options and you can say, okay, tomorrow I take this concrete step. And as soon as you take concrete step and you have a plan, it usually becomes very easy. And these methods we used in many different programs of mentoring on a personal as well as, like, as I mentioned, organizational level. And it works. Like if you really put an effort and the time, it really works out, and it really gives you a chance to actually achieve something that you think that you want to achieve. And also, like if in the process you see that the timeline is prolonging or shortening, that's also okay. It's very important that you take it as a very lively process, but you also take the ownership that you are the only one who is also actually like responsible for this. Do you maybe have any questions or you want to share something?
I maybe have a question because most of the things are connected with self-assessment. So we are doing it personally for ourselves. So do you have maybe some tips or tricks how to better self-assess ourselves?
Well, I would say this should be also actually like the part of our routine to do it like time to time and see how we are growing. So to evaluate. So if you use this notebook, for example, and you evaluate yourself like every week and then every month, then you can also see the growth. You can see like where you went further. Usually the most effective way is that you have somebody who is also doing it with you. So you have a mentor, for example, or you do a peer mentoring. So you can choose somebody and say, okay, we do it together. And then you also evaluate this together. And of course you have much higher motivation for doing it further. And for like, if you say, because for example, when we establish it in the programs, how we do it is we give a mentor to each person, and then they have like monthly meetings or the weekly meetings, so they assess it together, and it also gives you more responsibility to work on it. But if you're really motivated to work on yourself, then I mean you will be your mentor for yourself as well, and I think we are the most honest to is ourselves, and therefore it shouldn't be challenge. But peer mentoring is really great thing. So maybe this is also something for the Resolve network to do the peer mentoring. So people can have the mentoring buddies, people with whom they will do this, and then they do it together, and then they agree on the meetings not simultaneously, but like time to time they meet and they actually exchange on it. And it really shows after some time where you grow, as I said, where you have the not the progression but the regression, and maybe somewhere where you have a regression was not the important part of your life. But also like for the skill development, you can also see, okay, what were your strengths or the weaknesses. What we also do sometimes is the personal SWOT analysis, like you measure your strengths and weaknesses and opportunities and strengths, and then the important is you don't do it like one time, but you do it, for example, you know that you do it every month, so you can see the progress in this.
Can I share my experience about the Goalcatcher and one of the techniques which you already mentioned, the Wheel of Life, how I work with this technique?
Please.
I would like to show you, like, I don't know if you can see with the color coding. It's like you start year with for example red marker. You choose to work with red marker, for example, and then 4 or 5 times in a year you can use another colors of and you can check if your scores are higher or lower in each field. So it's very visible if you would use color coding, and you can see clearly the areas you would like to work more and you would like to focus more to get higher scores. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, you can be very creative about it. You can paint yourself, you can you can also print out the ones and add in every month for yourself. But yeah, I mean, if you do it like systematically, then it really shows you where the growth is happening.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe you have some other questions or something that you would like to share.
There is a question from Bayana just in the chat.
Yeah. Yeah, as I mentioned, like it's good if you have a mentor, and by mentor we don't necessarily mean that it should be somebody highly professional and, you know, certified. You can just use these tools together with your friend, for example, and you can like have this peer mentoring. But again, if you go through these tools, you can also do it yourself. It very much depends on how the self-directed learning is developed in you. And if you like feel that you can systematically work on it, you don't need anybody. Like we create it for the personal use, and so far whoever is using it is using it at personal level without a mentor, and they are quite satisfied so far.